My name is Arya. A sad event happened just a month ago, and I was overwhelmed with sadness. My beloved husband, Easton, passed away. When cancer was found in Easton's body and the doctor declared his life expectancy, I was prepared, but I didn't think his end would be so sudden. Easton's funeral was held quietly without inviting anyone, as he had requested while he was alive. Although Easton was a friendly person with many friends, he did not invite anyone to his funeral because he was afraid of his parents' arrival. His parents are terrible parents who even make Easton feel disgusted. In short, they are extortionists. As soon as Easton graduated from high school, "We don't have the money to send you to college," he was told by his parents and was sent to work. And he was told to put most of his salary into the house. When Easton's boss heard about that situation, he said, "You're being exploited. You can live a better life by living alone." And he helped Easton live alone. First, he talked to his parents about living alone, and while he was persuading them, he moved out. And Easton, who was working for a branch office, was transferred to the head office, taking into account his ability, and he did not tell his parents about it. As a result, his salary was not deposited into his parents' house, and he was able to live a peaceful life without being attacked by his parents, who were complaining that his salary was not being deposited into his parents' house. However, such a person has created a situation where he has to deal with parents who have escaped again. That's me. I met Easton at work. I was touched by Easton's kind personality and I gradually fell in love with him. And when I heard about his parents and his past struggles, I wanted to help make his life happy. When I honestly told him that, he was happy and thanked me, and he confessed that he wanted me to go out with him. Then we started dating. And 3 years after we started dating, he proposed to me, and we talked to our boss about our engagement. All of our colleagues looked like they were finally doing it, but everyone congratulated us. However, there were people who were unlikely to congratulate us on our marriage. That's Easton's parents. They only see Easton as a tool to make money. How do they feel about Easton, who ran away, coming to see them with his fiancée? At least I don't think they'll welcome him. As a token of my appreciation, I'm thinking of making a formal greeting for our engagement. Depending on their attitude at that time, I'm thinking of cutting off all ties. I realized that he was trying to settle his past, and I accepted his words. When Easton and I went to his parents' house to announce our engagement, both his mother and father were surprised to see Easton. Their son, who had disappeared a few years after graduating from high school, had returned home with a woman. It's no wonder they were surprised. Long time no see. "Dad, Mom, I came to tell you about our engagement today," Easton said. Easton introduced me to his parents at the entrance without entering the house. I said my name. Then, Easton's mother looked at me as if she was scrutinizing me. "Since it's you, you've got a woman who spends a lot of money, haven't you? You should prioritize your family over others. If you're going to spend money on such a woman, spend it on us instead." I was surprised. Easton had told me before I came to his parents' house that his parents were lacking in moral sense, but I didn't expect them to say such things. Easton's mother said it seriously while looking at Easton. "You're going to spend a lot of money on the wedding and honeymoon, aren't you? That's a waste. Besides, we've raised you properly. Why haven't you sent us any money until now?" When Easton brought his fiancée to his parents' house, Easton's mother talked only about money instead of congratulating them on their engagement. I was at a loss for words. Easton's father tried to calm her down. Easton wanted to enjoy living alone at the time. Having a family means learning the importance of money. He'll pay all the money he hasn't sent home so far at once. Right, Easton? Don't worry about the details, just transfer about $50,000. Easton's father seemed more concerned about money than happy that his son had come home after a long time. However, $50,000 is a lot of money. He should have realized that we were planning to get married, but I didn't think they would prioritize sending money to themselves over our marriage funds. I now understand why Easton ran away from these people. Easton sighed heavily next to me. "Mom, Dad, I came here to tell you that I'm going to cut ties with you too," Easton said. Easton's parents were surprised, their eyes wide open. They talked about money before congratulating their son who had come home after a long time. I think it's a situation where it's inevitable to be told that they will be cut off. However, Easton's parents didn't seem to be thinking about cutting ties. "What's wrong with you all of a sudden? Have you gone crazy?" Easton's mother said. "You're the one who's crazy. If money is so important to you, you shouldn't have had children. Child-rearing costs money, after all. Besides, I know. It wasn't you or mom who gave me money for high school. It was my uncle who was worried that I wouldn't be able to go to high school because of your wasteful habits, Easton said. Easton's parents looked away awkwardly at his words. What Easton said was probably true. Easton's mother said she had raised him properly, but that was a big mistake. They didn't even intend to send him to high school. I was confused because I didn't understand why the couple in front of me wanted to raise children if they had a habit of wasting money and hesitated to spend money on their children. Did they want to make money easily by making Easton work? The money my father and mother spent on me has already been paid back. So I won't send any more money to my father and mother from now on. I will cut ties with you. I won't invite you to our wedding. Please don't be involved in my life anymore. That's why I came to tell you today. Easton's mother and father turned red with anger at his words. The two people who were making a fuss and showering Easton with heartless words didn't seem like the same human like us. I can't help but think that these people are not the same generation as my parents. A relative of Easton who lived nearby heard the loud voices and came over to Easton's parents' house and shouted at Easton's father and mother, driving them into the house. Apparently, that person was like the uncle Easton had talked about. Easton thanked his uncle for everything he had done for him and his family, and he said he would invite his uncle to the wedding. Unlike Easton's father and mother, his uncle was happy about Easton's growth and congratulated him on his marriage. Easton, you've grown up. You're getting married. Be happy, his uncle said. Thus, we finished greeting Easton's parents. Since Easton was told his life expectancy, he had been telling me. It's better not to invite my parents to my funeral. I think they'll ask for the inheritance. I wanted to laugh at his words as an exaggeration, but when I saw them at the engagement, I thought they might do such a thing because they wanted money so much. Even if they were the parents of my beloved husband, I couldn't let them ruin Easton's funeral. We decided to have a family funeral and only invited people we were really close to. Of course, we invited Easton's uncle, who had always supported him and had come to see him many times even after he was told his life expectancy. After crying, his uncle, who came to the funeral, had red eyes like he had been crying, and he said to me, "If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. Easton also wishes you happiness." He gave me his contact information. I thought I had to live alone after this, but his uncle's offer was very heartwarming. Easton must have talked to his uncle about entrusting me to him before he died. In the notebook he told me to look at when he died, there was a sentence that said, "If something happens, rely on my uncle." There were also things written about places and people to contact, and things to make sure I wouldn't have trouble with if something happened. Of course, there was also something written about the money he left behind. If Easton's mother and father had been at the funeral, they might have said that they would take all the money Easton left behind. We kept the funeral secret from Easton's mother and father, so I was able to sort out his belongings calmly. Since I had become a housewife after marrying Easton, I had plenty of time to calm down. When it was about 3 months after the funeral, uninvited visitors came to the house where Easton and I lived. It was my mother-in-law and father-in-law who had never been told the location of the house. Since I had only met them once when we exchanged greetings for our engagement a long time ago, I didn't know who the man and woman were when they pressed the intercom at first. "Who are you?" When I asked, my mother-in-law's face turned red over the intercom screen and she began to get angry. "It's rude of you to forget your mother-in-law and father-in-law's faces." I was surprised, but I was worried about causing trouble in the neighborhood, so I invited my mother-in-law and father-in-law into the house. "I can't believe Easton built a house. Our son is splendid. It's quite a nice house. I wonder how much it cost. Well, what can I do for you today?" As soon as she entered the house, my mother-in-law looked around the house as if she were checking the quality of the items. I followed my mother-in-law and father-in-law, who were looking around the house, and asked them what they had come to do. Then my father-in-law glared at me. "Even if you don't want to have anything to do with your parents-in-law, I think you should invite us to weddings, funerals, and other important events. Do you know how rude it is not to invite us to your wedding? We only met you once when you came to report your engagement to us, and we haven't seen Easton since then. And yet, when we tried to see him after a long time, he had already passed away, and we weren't even invited to the funeral. Isn't that a terrible thing?" My father-in-law's anger is understandable, but I remembered that Easton had said before he died. Even if those people say something sensible, there's definitely money involved behind the scenes, so don't let your guard down and deal with them. Yes, these two people demanded money from their son, whom they hadn't seen in a long time, rather than congratulating him on his marriage. There's no way such people could be genuinely sad about their son's death. It's what Easton wanted, I said firmly. I can't let them push me around here. If I give in to them once, they'll think I'm someone who can be pushed around. My father-in-law tried to say something to me again, but my mother-in-law grabbed his shoulder and stopped him. Now, you. There must be a reason why Easton chose a family funeral. A reason? Well, it's better to think about leaving us more money than spending it on a meaningless funeral. That's what our child thought would make us happy. As I suspected, they seemed to be more concerned about money than their son. My mother-in-law said to me with a smile. So, all the inheritance is ours, right? Just give us all the inheritance quietly. The will stated that there was nothing to be left to either his father or mother, I said firmly. They seemed to think that they would also receive some of the money Easton had left behind, but that was not the case. Easton had always said that he had nothing to leave them. That's impossible. You're the worst woman for taking our son away from us and taking his inheritance too. Do you know what will happen if you don't listen to us? My mother-in-law came at me, but I glared back at her. There's no inheritance to give to people who don't even mourn Easton's death. Is money the only thing people think about when someone dies? You don't even know how much Easton suffered. Please leave. I retorted to my mother-in-law, but she didn't seem to intend to listen to me and retorted back. You're the one who's leaving. You're just a housewife, aren't you? You've been living off Easton's money and now you're acting all high and mighty. This is the house our son built. Parasites like you should leave. Okay. I have to pack and get ready to go, so please leave for today. After I told them I was leaving, my mother-in-law and father-in-law seemed to be relieved and left the house without any fuss. After making sure that my mother-in-law and father-in-law had left, I contacted my husband's uncle. When he heard that my father-in-law and mother-in-law came to the house and demanded Easton's inheritance, he sighed heavily. It's not the time for this kind of thing. So, I'm going to escape as the will says. Okay. I'll help you. I'll come over tomorrow, so get your things together and arrange for a moving company. Thank you. Easton's last words included instructions on what to do if his parents came to visit after his death. If Easton's parents came to the house where we lived, we were to sell the house immediately and run away to a place where they wouldn't know. He had predicted this situation as well. Even after his death, their attempts to squeeze money out of him seemed inhuman, like something else entirely. To escape from my mother-in-law and father-in-law, I quickly packed my things and moved into a room that was available for immediate occupancy with the help of my uncle. After that, I heard the story from my uncle. About a month after I told them I was leaving, my mother-in-law and father-in-law seemed to have prepared to move in with us with a lot of luggage. However, there was a for sale sign in front of the house where Easton and I lived, and I was no longer there. Of course, I hadn't exchanged contact information with my mother-in-law and father-in-law, so they couldn't call me to find out what was going on. They didn't know anything about my family or friends, so it would be impossible for them to find me. It seems that my father-in-law and mother-in-law had driven me out and were planning to live in the house where Easton and I lived, so they sold their house. So, even though they came with a lot of luggage, I was no longer there and the house had been sold. Both of them seemed to be standing still for a while in that situation. Then my uncle, who had been checking on the house regularly, happened to pass by and secured my father-in-law and mother-in-law, who were carrying luggage. Uncle said that he decided to make my father-in-law and mother-in-law work because they hadn't paid back the money they had borrowed from him a long time ago. Since Uncle has several friends who are business owners, I think my father-in-law and mother-in-law will work at a company run by one of them. It feels like things have settled down. I am currently living a quiet life with the money Easton left me. Recently, former colleagues who know that Easton has passed away have told me that they will speak to their superiors so that I can return to work whenever I want. My parents also worry about me and tell me to come home whenever I want. My friends also worry about me and call me occasionally. While looking at the notebook Easton left me, I thought that I couldn't keep feeling down forever, so I stood up. I'm going to call my former colleagues right away and tell them that I'm thinking of returning to work. I'm sure I won't find anyone I love more than Easton in my future life. But I've decided to live with Easton in my heart. I want to live a life where I can report to Easton with pride when we meet again someday.